Correctly.
Hi, Salli. Nice to see you.
Great to see you too, as it were.
Yeah. So we are doing another Meet the Faces Behind the Actions episode. I'm Stayce Camparo, co-chair of communications for the Global Women's Caucus, and I'm sitting down with Salli Swartz, who is our chair and action team leader of the Reproductive Justice Action Team. Thanks for chatting with me today.
Long title, but a big mission. You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
Awesome. So let's get started because this won't be long. So we're talking about abortion today. And I want, if you can, you to quickly draw the connection between reproductive health, abortion, and motherhood.
Absolutely. It seems pretty obvious to most people, but women are the only people other than men that have uteruses, which is a new development, but I won't get into today. Women are the only ones that can continue the human race because we get pregnant and give birth. And that choice as to whether or not we want to give birth and have another human being on earth concerns our bodies. And pregnancy is really, it's not an illness, but it's a medical condition. And it really affects a woman's health, and it affects the health of the to-be-born baby. And in that sense, whether or not to have a child is not just a parenting decision, although it certainly is that, but it is also, what is my physical health like? Do I have a disease that's going to affect my baby? Am I capable of raising a child? Do I have the economic means? Do I have a partner? Do I want a partner? Do I think a partner is necessary? Where will I live? Will I get fresh air for this baby? Can I buy food and clothes for this baby? And what about the health care after the birth? Is someone going to take care of me and make sure my pregnancy is safe? And what about after? What if I have a hemorrhage? Who's going to take care of me? And what about the baby? What if the baby is born with a sickness, a malady, or something, some disease? I mean, this is really a panicky, look at me, I'm already panicked and I've already had a baby. But these are all questions, I think, that are subliminal for many women, but should be spoken about out there and front. And abortion is a big A, but it's a really important point. And I think if we don't get the word out about choices, because that's what it's all about, my body, my choice, then I think we are failing in our mission as feminists. I really do. And I have to admit that the United States is at a real disadvantage and always has been, although we did make progress in the 70s and some of the 80s. We don't talk about things. We push them under the carpet. We're afraid of them. And when you put, that's the bottom level. And then you put on top of that a healthcare system that's expensive and inaccessible. And then you put on top of that the problem of education, or maybe that's not the right order, but I think you see my point, where nobody knows what to do, what their choices are. Even in a couple, I'm not trying to exclude the parent of the yet born child, but it's the woman that gives birth, and it's her body that will be ripped apart or taken care of. And therefore, I think that reproductive health, abortion, and motherhood are all part of a really big circle that has to be looked into. You know, if your health is not good, you can't be a good mother, and maybe you should have options on birth control. And if that fails, or you don't have those options, this is a last-ditch effort to avoid a catastrophe, which could be medical, it could be economic, it could be any sort of catastrophe. Nobody wants unhealthy, uncared for children in the world. Yeah. And therefore, I think we have to work from the bottom up.
Yeah. I mean, I think one thing that you sort of touch upon when you went through these questions and you were saying, even I'm getting panicky, is also the mental health.
Absolutely.
It's not just what the body goes through, but it's all of the questions as well. The panic of, do I have the resources for this? Do I have a partner? Will I be doing it alone? And what's it going to do to my body? I know in my second pregnancy, I got sick with parvovirus, and there was a concern for the fetus. And so there was a lot of, mental concern, just, is this baby going to be okay?
Right.
And I think probably when there's a partner involved, they're sharing that mental concern differently. So mental health is also a part of that healthcare.
I consider that part of health, actually.
Yes, me too.
I should have carved it out because it's so integral to my definition of health. But you're absolutely right. And I think the psychological stress comes even before the physical stress.
Yeah.
I mean, the very thought when you get that test back and go, oh geez, I'm pregnant, or yay, I'm pregnant, or oh my God, you really need to think through these things, and above all, get the support that you need. And that all of that is part of women's health, and all of that is to a great degree missing in the United States health system. And that is our goal, and that's our mission, to fix it.
That's a big goal. I have a lot of respect for you and your team. So that's sort of a focused, we looked at this circle, and we kind of touched on some really focused aspects of it. Let's now expand that view and broaden and look at some philosophical ideas about choice and decision-making as a human right and advancements in medicine. How, in your opinion, do these topics relate to abortion? How have medical advancements helped women's autonomy and decision-making in her pursuit for reproductive rights?
Okay, well, you're probably too young to remember this, but intellectually, I'm sure you're aware of it. There was a time when we had no control over, or very little control, I should say, over whether or not we got pregnant. And then boom, in the 60s, out came the pill. And that changed everything. For those of us who were entering adolescence in the 60s, I mean, that was just, it was drugs, sex, and rock and roll. And the sex and the drugs were pretty related on some occasions. But the birth control liberated women. I mean, there's nothing else one could say about it. As a medical issue, I would like to add that most women's issues do not get the funding that they need, medical funding for research. I mean, breast cancer may be one of the sole exceptions, and even that. So it was a miracle, I think, a medical miracle, that somebody came up with a pill, and it worked, because that gave us, as you say, choice, and it gave us control, and it liberated our entire perspective on who we were and who we are. Because what did that do? That said, I'm a human being, and I can take control over my body, and I can choose whether or not and when I want to reproduce a baby, and with whom. And okay, those are big issues, but they don't always work as well as I just stated. But what a huge leap forward.
Yeah. So this is sort of a gender equality issue too, because as you said, it gave us choice, it gave us control. It put us sort of on par with how men are able to, partake in sex, with being able to enjoy the act without having to necessarily worry about the consequence.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember having this discussion with a guy friend of mine. It was years later. It was in the beginning of the 80s. Well, years later for the pill. I mean, it was already out there. And he said his wife was pregnant, and he didn't look happy. And I said, well, what's up, Richard? And he said, oh, but it was a total accident. And I looked at him and I said, that is such crap. I mean, come on, I said, and
Thanks.
you're telling that to me, a woman? I said, I don't give me that, okay? And then I realized that men were hiding women's birth control pills, and women were forgetting to take them, and there was a whole other world out there that was, I guess, pretty predictable. But it made me kind of laugh. But yeah, it is an equality. It's total equality issue. Um, and it's medical, because we rely, all of us human beings, on the medical community to make us healthier human beings. For a long time, pregnancy was considered a disease. I mean, it was sick leave as opposed to maternity leave or paternity leave or family leave. And all the burden and the pleasure, but the burden of the getting pregnant and having a child and raising that child and all the other drudgery that goes with being a woman was pretty overwhelming. And the burden created an unequal situation between men and women, particularly in the workplace, I would say. So yeah, you're right. It's definitely an equality. Equality, control, independence, all of those are ways that men control women, and all of those were mitigated by the pill and medical advances, other medical advances as well, including abortion.
Yeah.
Safe abortion.
Right. Safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Safe abortion. So then, continuing on with the idea of women being able or having the right to control their bodies and make decisions about their bodies, I want to play a clip. It's a clip from an NPR podcast that I heard with Nicole Lynn Lewis, who is author of a memoir and also founder of a organization that helps teenage mothers. And I want to play just a short clip and get just hear your thoughts about it.
Sure.
Here it is.
Great idea.
By that. The World Health Organization released a report several years ago, and in the report, they talked about the fact that adolescent pregnancy is more about a lack of choices than a deliberate choice. And that has always really stuck out to me as a great way to really reframe the way that we think about teen pregnancy and young women who find themselves in this situation. There's a sense of powerlessness that I think is happening for young people all across the country. And what we see is that, even access to birth control is a challenge for many young people. Having quality, effective healthcare and being able to access that is a challenge. And so I think we have to really start to understand the underlying issues that are at play that really rob young people of their ability to make their own decisions about their bodies and their lives.
So true. It is so true. And, a lot of the anti-abortion, anti-choice legislation in the US states these days require parental consent, not only for abortion, but for birth control. So, it's really amazing how, for some puritanical reason, there is no sex education in junior high and high schools, and there's no of it in the States. Okay. There's no availability of educating people about choice. There are fewer and fewer family clinics. They're impossible to get to if you live in a rural area and don't have a car. The states have made it impossible to get all kinds of things. For example, the morning after pill, which used to be available, but it still is available. You have to go to a pharmacy to pick it up. And during COVID, that was really a burden. And I feel really sorry for all of the teenage kids and girls and women who are trying to just lead a normal life, having sex, and have no education because they've been deprived of it, not because they don't want it, have no ability to take care of their own bodies, have no ability to take any control over what's happening, end up pregnant because they don't know how to avoid it, and then can't get an abortion. And then what happens? Then they have to go through the physical bearing on the birth of a child, which is not a piece of cake, as
Don't I know it?
and won't admit, okay? It is really painful. And even if you want to be helped through drugs, they're not always available. And they're certainly not available to women who don't have access to health care. So, let's get real about this. Do you want your teenage daughter to give birth when she's 15 or 16, lose out on schooling, lose out on education, lose out on everything? I mean, I'll tell you one thing, I wouldn't want to raise a kid at my age. Therefore, grandparents are not great choices for substitute parents or mothers. And I really think this is it's a crime in my mind, to deprive children who are capable of making babies, both boys and girls, of education so that they can control, and of course the women, because they bear the burden of the pregnancy, no matter what anybody says. It's us that have to give birth.
Well, and I think, you draw on a couple of things that I want to touch upon, for the teenage moms who do want to have the baby and see the baby through term, and this is for a different subject that we can talk about, maybe another interview, is the policy that the states can impose to help women, continue their education, find childcare resources for the young women who do decide to have the baby. But of course, many don't, and abortion should be an option. Also, you're right. It's funny and frustrating that we don't educate our children about something that is so natural, something that all people, most people, I should say, I don't want to generalize, but probably most people, get curious about at a youngish age, and experiment with, and then they're clueless, and it's a taboo subject, I think, not just in the educational institutions, but also for families, for parents to talk to their children about these topics as well.
Parenting, yes. I think, first of all, I'm a pretty frank person, so I didn't necessarily have that issue with my daughter. I don't know if she appreciated it, but I'd ask her. But it's taboo. Mm-hmm. I mean, families don't talk about a lot of stuff, okay? But we have to help families. We really do. And that's part of education. That's what the schools should be doing. I mean, civic education should be part of the schools, and sex education should be part of a schooling. You can't change parents, or it's harder to change parents. This might be due to religious beliefs. It may not be. But the schools have a responsibility to educate kids so that they become responsible adults, thinking responsible adults. And, by and large, I think that's what they try to do. But this one subject has always been taboo, and is becoming more and more taboo as opposed to the opposite. So, and in addition to that, all the funding for family clinics, which provide education, free education in that particular domain, they're closing, and nobody has access to them. Mm-hmm. So what we're doing is we're going back into the Middle Ages, where kids don't know what to do. They don't feel they can talk to their parents because they're teenagers, and by definition, teenagers don't talk to their parents, right? And the schools are totally not there for them. And there's no place else to go. Planned Parenthood has been deprived of so much funding that it's barely existing. The Hyde Amendment has taken away all funding for anybody in the military, in the schools, any public servants. It's a bad scenario, and I don't understand why. To use an example, I mean, you're from Germany, I'm from France, but in France, which is a predominantly Catholic country by historically speaking, despite the fact that they are completely secular in the public sphere, you can get birth control free of charge in the schools, and abortion is free. There are counseling places available pretty much everywhere. And this is a country that pretends to be Catholic, or at least a lot of people are practicing Catholic. So in the United States, which is not predominantly Catholic to the best of my information, where religion thrives and should thrive, this should not be a taboo, because religion shouldn't stop people from having choices. That's my view anyway. And, you know, I'm really kind of sick of men dominating the way we live, how we work, when we work, what we get paid, we should have children, how we raise them, et cetera, et cetera. We got to stop this, okay? We were on a roll in the 60s and the 70s, and then all of a sudden, I don't know what happened. The roller coaster went backwards. And I think we got to load up again, women, and get this back and take back our rights, because as you said when we were talking, abortion has become a dirty word. And women are dying.
Yeah.
And as with femicide and violence and everything else, I mean, the stats are not good. So, you know, I just wish that we could get the word out in a non-emotional, medical, factual way, so that people can hear the message and not become completely hysterical and close down their ears. And I don't know what to do about these poor girls that get pregnant and don't want to keep their babies. It's bad.
Not a lot of choices. So on that note, we're going to end, but I sort of got little hints of what you want to leave the people who are watching this video with, but I'll let you say it. What do you want people to go home with after watching this clip?
Well, I don't want you to go home, because you're probably already home, but this is what I want you to do. I want you to hear what we're saying. And if you agree, and even if you don't agree, I would like you to get in touch with me via email to continue the discussion. Our action group is open to all. We have lots of pots on the stove, as it were. We have many initiatives. There's all kinds of work to be done. If you feel shy, I'll call you and walk you through it. It's okay to be shy. It's okay to be hesitant. There's a place for everyone. It's a big umbrella group. And even if you don't feel that you want to support abortion for yourself, it's okay too. So Stacey, will you let everyone know how to find me?
Yes, I will leave your contact info and volunteer form in the chat under this video. So Salli, thank you for talking to me about this. Let's keep the conversation going. Let's not make it taboo anymore, and hopefully make some more change.
And I hope Germany and France, good examples, are imported into the United States. What do you think?
I think that's good. Let's hope. Bye.
Bye, Stacey.